in these times where we're confronting so much evil.
Confronting so much evil. Mm-hmm. What evil are you talking about?
What evil? The political atmosphere and setup and the situation we find ourselves in being something that I couldn't have dreamed up, you know. And we always say, they say, oh, it's worse than it ever was, but this is way worse than it ever was. And I've been around a long time, and so have you. And how you confront what we're up against is a constant question.
And to hear you talk about being worried about the present time, you were pretty worried in the 60s, as you made clear.
Yeah, and there was a clear goal that we saw every morning that you get up and do. And we had the sense of togetherness, that we could do something together. And in the end, it was international cooperation and a movement that ended the war way late. And to my shock, I wrote a song. And I haven't written a song except for that silly, nasty man song about Trump in 27 years.
Well, we haven't talked about what you call that silly, nasty man song about Trump. Let's talk about that. It's not your usual kind of music.
Not at all. And it just, I mean, if we have a few things to thank that man for, they brought out, you know, creative juices in people who weren't even creative before. That song just, it can't, you know, the problem with that song is that there isn't enough time to put all the verses in. I realized after I'd written 5 or 6 clever verses that anybody should go on writing the song. I say to the audience, you know, go home and write a verse of your own because it's endless. There are a number of things you could write about.
And you're gonna build a wall, the biggest wall, the beautifulest wall around our borders. But here's what I think, you better talk to a shrink, 'cause you got serious psychological disorders. You got dangerous pathological disorders.
It's my understanding that you grew up in a Quaker environment.
I did.
Was that the early forming of your activism, or did that come later?
No, I believe that I had a social awareness by the time I was 10. And we were living in the Middle East. And my family, my parents would have gatherings over there of my father's students who would come and spend silent time and then talk about what was going on in the world. But I heard the discussions of violence, nonviolence by the time I was 10. And by the time I was 13, I think I'd pretty much made my mind up that there was only one way to be, and that was really to reject violence on as many levels as possible, although I know that one of my friends said it would be better or healthier for all of us if there were more barroom brawls. You know, you might get it out of your system.
Right. But actually, by the time you were about 13, it formed in your mind nonviolence. Be active, speak out.
Well, it formed don't hurt anybody. And then the be active came pretty close upon the heels of that. Because when I was 15, I did my first sit-in all by myself in high school, because they were doing a kind of duck and cover. And I asked my dad how long it would take a missile to get from Moscow to Palo Alto High School. And it was all fraud, you know. They were saying the siren will go off and you'll all leave the school or have your parents pick you up. That was even weirder. So I thought, well, I'll just stay in school as a protest, and spoke to the principal, he didn't know what on earth I was doing, but it was sort of an education for all of us to discuss it, the secretaries and the vice principal, and I was sure of myself.
I want to ask you about the war. That anybody who's read anything about you knows you went to North Korea, you went to Hanoi during the war, you were in a bomb shelter during B-52 raids and all that. Looking back on that period, I know you're proud of it, but do you have any regrets about anything you did during that period?
You know, for the most part, I don't have regrets because I stuck to my foundation, which was nonviolence. I never really did any social activism that wasn't grounded in nonviolence. So, I mean, I think if somebody's been a lefty all their life and decided they're going to switch, you know, and vote for Trump, then you say, I'm really embarrassed about all that stuff I did. But I'm really not embarrassed about any major thing that I was involved in.
Have you ever met Senator John McCain? Have you talked to him or corresponded with him?
No, I have not. I did visit the POWs in Hanoi when I was there and took them letters. And I always, you know, when you visit prisons, prison camps, it's what I call pork and volleyball. They show you how well everybody's treated and we're all having good dinners here and everybody's playing sports.
Sure.
And I had enough brains to know that that wasn't what was going on. And there wasn't much I could do there either.
Well, there's a lot of history between the lines of what you're talking about. And you've been quoted as saying when you're on stage, you say, I don't make history, I am history.
Well, it's kind of true. I know that when I walk out on the stage, I represent a lifetime for a lot of people. They say it in different ways. You know, you were the background to my growing up was the music. It also takes the pressure off me of what am I going to do? When I walk out on the stage, I've done, and I'm usually involved in something, but I know that it triggers people. I mean, they've said that they'd forgotten about activism or something like that, and this helped remind them. So yeah, I am history. So are you.
I'm not sure about that.
Oh, I am.
But we'll talk at another time.
Okay.